Welcome to the Writer's Block, a short web video series where we discuss tips for writers, specifically for Fordham University, but really tips for writers anywhere. And in this specific video, we're starting a three-part series where each of the members of the Writer's Block are going to talk about 5 things that we wish we knew in undergrad. Some of it pertains to writing, some of it we can stretch to make it about writing, but really, if your experience in undergrad is good, it's going to help your writing experience in general. And so Ellis is going first with us today. So Ellis, why don't you tell us a little bit about your own undergrad experience?
So like Fordham students, I went to school in New York City, but I went to the new school, which is further downtown in Manhattan. And there's honestly so much that I wish I had known going into my time as an undergrad, both on an academic level and just on a personal level. I'm now finishing the PhD and have spent a lot of time both as a student and as mentoring students of different backgrounds. Because my experience as an undergrad was largely positive, but there's definitely a lot of things that I wish I had known going in that I kind of learned along the way and that I think would be like useful advice that I wish that someone had just told me when I was starting out.
Great. Well, the idea of this is to list them all out. So why don't we start with number 1?
Sure. So my first tip or advice for people who are either entering into undergrad or you're already in college is I would really encourage you to like visit with professors and attend office hours if they're offered. Most professors both structure in some office hours, but they also often make office hours by appointment. And I'm a little bit shy in person, so if you're anything like me, then the idea of just showing up to office hours seems completely daunting. But I wish I had done it more because once I discovered it, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think coming at it from the professor side as well, seeing a student come by your office is actually like a highlight of the day. It's actually a lovely thing because you get to have that one-on-one connection. You you figure out what the student's doing, what their interests are, and it helps you like tailor your own teaching, maybe foster an individual project that the student has going on. So I think that's a great tip.
Yeah, I always felt like I needed to come really prepared with a lot of content or brilliant ideas or like fully formed outlines and drafts. But really, honestly, as a professor, I'm so happy to just sit and talk with a student about like what their experience in the class has been like, what their like goals are, and just like how things are going. And then you can get into uh, writing stuff later on. But it's really nice to just like check in with a professor and get to know them a little bit, and your writing will be the better for it too.
Yeah. I got a small personal pet peeve is when students apologize for coming to office hours and
Right?
and you're like, no, this is why I became a professor, is to talk to you and help you. Like I enjoy doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like my favorite thing. I think that students also like feel like, yeah, like it's an imposition of some kind, but the office hours are really there for people to use, and you don't need to either be like, another like common misconception about it, I think, is that you need to have a problem
Hmm.
of some kind to come to office hours, and like that's not true either. Like you can just come and it's great, and it's like fun for us, even though it's often scary for students. It can be just a really nice way to get to know your professors.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, how about tip 2? I think this one kind of gets into that building a tie between people too as well.
Yeah, so my second tip is having to do with um, being part of a college community, but also kind of extending beyond that. Um, if you're in a city, like make sure that you explore that city and you make connections outside the college. But if you're at a college that has a lot of like great clubs, social activities, make sure you research what kinds of activities that your college hosts. But there's also so many great like groups and opportunities that might be just outside the campus gates, especially if you're in a city. And that's really true for Fordham. We're part of New York City, and there's so much going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And it will just make your experience like that much more enjoyable and enriching, and you'll get to know people who you didn't think that you would.
This is one of those things that, is a very specific New York kind of a thing. I went to undergrad out in Utah, and there wasn't nearly as much community. There wasn't nearly as much options available to me. And so it's not something that I realized was lacking from my college experience until I came to New York.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, those like connections can be really important like in the college itself. But it's also just really great to make friends outside of your like normal social circle at school and
Mm-hmm.
kind of explore the city a little better, have experiences that are outside of campus. Staying safe, obviously, and like the time that we're living in right now,
Yeah.
your exploring might be like slightly limited. Um, but I think that school community is just as important as local community. So get involved however you can.
Absolutely. And clubs, extracurriculars, things like that, they help you build networks because, later on down the line, maybe you're applying for a job in a different city and someone that you happen to know from your hiking club just so happens to also be out there and can tell you a little bit. Like networks are so great, and you only get them if you're out finding community. You can't just like fake it into a network.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's actually kind of related to the next tip that I wanted to make. So I'll just move straight into that one.
Yeah.
Because it kind of has to do with like those first few really awkward months at college that can feel just really, really isolating. And you just need to find your people. I almost ended up transferring uh, like shortly after my freshman year because I was having trouble making friends like within my major and at my college. Um, and I ended up finding a different department, which was a really small major at my school. And there were only a few people doing it. So it was very like,
Mhm.
knit. And um, I kind of found my people in that department, and it was really great. But I wouldn't have found it if I hadn't like kind of stuck it out and done something a little bit outside of my comfort zone. Um,
Yeah, I find that a lot of the times when we are feeling overwhelmed or we are sort of just like at capacity, we want to start reducing the amount of inputs around us. Fewer people helps us, handle whatever we're doing better. But really, we're social creatures, and no one can be entirely introverted. You do maybe find a group of introverts that you can hang out and sit next to and work. You don't have to talk all the time, but like don't just go completely inward and by yourself. Um, yeah.
yeah, and it takes a while to adjust. And I think it's all about just trying things that are maybe a little bit outside your comfort zone. You don't need to like reinvent yourself, but just give yourself time and like be forgiving to yourself, and um, push yourself to where you feel like you're experimenting, and that's when really great things can come of it.
Mhm. I think pushing yourself kind of rolls into our next point, though it's maybe a little bit less of a metaphorical pushing yourself.
Yeah. So my next point is don't push yourself too hard. Um,
Ah,
learn how, like, it's, mostly just like something that I really didn't cultivate in college, which is like learning how to take care of yourself. Um, which, like, during college, I had a cold for an entire semester. Like, just the whole semester, I had a cold. So that was about like the habits that I was building at the time, that I've now in my 30s had to like kind of unlearn.
Hmm.
Um, so for any like new college student, I would say, like, um, it's really easy to like neglect your body and your mind when you are overloaded with work and you're young enough that your body's going to like bounce back really quickly if you stay up all night, or drink really heavily, or don't exercise, or eat poorly.
Yeah,
But those are things that you end up kind of carrying with you. So yeah.
absolutely. I think a lot of us, when we get into undergrad, we're like in love with the idea of being this like great college student who's going to work all night on their projects, or they're going to pull an all-nighter and then go to class. And that's college in movies. It really isn't college the way, that's not the best way to learn. Everyone has different ways of learning, but if you're sick, you do need to take that time. If you find that you're low on energy constantly, well, maybe you start hitting the gym. Maybe reach like double check your diet, or where your time is being spent, how you're getting frazzled, things like that. Really, college should be more of a kind of nice experience. It shouldn't be working 24/7 on rushing deadlines. If you have that, ask for extensions, cut a few things out, and get to the position where you're comfortably challenged and feel like you're retaining what it is you're learning.
Yeah, and that's really a moment where like going to office hours, communicating with your professors can be a real benefit, because if you know your professors, if you've attended office hours, then they're going to be more likely to understand and to kind of know where you're coming from. If you need, an extra day on an essay, or just need a little bit of grace in terms of deadlines.
Yeah, it
So
takes us 2 weeks to grade essays anyway. Get it in a couple days late. What does it matter to us?
yeah, I mean, a lot of professors are willing to be very forgiving to students, because we know that you're going through a lot, and that being in college is very stressful. And we just hope that like you're going to also uh, take care of yourself and not get stuck in a rut of staying up too late and then waking up too late and then working too hard and trying to cram 4 hours of work into a single hour of writing. And your writing will be better for it too.
Absolutely.
You'll be a better writer if you're focused and fed and rested and exercised. Like, you'll not only feel better and it'll be more sustainable, but you'll the quality of your work will be higher as well.
All right. Kind of ties into this idea of having a better time in college, a good time in college. What's your last point there, Ellis?
So my last point is has to do with kind of moving out of college, and staying in touch, not just with the friends that you're going to make in college along the way, but also with the professors who really mentored you, whose classes you enjoyed, who helped you along the way. Um, and those are some of like the most lovely relationships that I've had, because I ended up kind of going into a field that was similar to my college
Mhm.
major. Um, so staying in touch with my college professors was great, because then like you not only have an advocate who has known you forever, but you'll also have a person to like bounce ideas off of and ask for career advice as you enter into that field. Um, and also related to that, I kept a bunch of my syllabuses. I wish I had kept more because as I was entering into more like advanced English classes, I found that having all my old syllabi was really helpful to look back at like readings, activities, stuff that we had studied in my undergrad. So I really recommend like keeping in touch and keeping like connected to uh, the field that you want to enter into.
Yeah. I think one of the things to note is that when you're building a network, and most students kind of see college as a network experience in these days, especially in like business side of the world. When you build a network, you have to put in energy to maintain it. You have to make an effort. And that can sometimes feel, like it's another thing on top of something else. It doesn't really have to be sign up for a newsletter, show up at a at maybe a conference, or if there's an alumni meeting or something like that. You can just put in a small bit of effort once a semester, even once a year, and it keeps these relationships going. It keeps you updated on what the people who were once the majority of your life are up to, and you never know where that's going to lead. I think very important in social networks is just having the option to hear something, or having the option to like if something does come up, take advantage of that. Now that's very social engineering-y. It's also just important to remember where you came from, like so.
Yeah, I mean, those are some of like my favorite friendships now because, those are professors that I had in undergrad, and it's now like 10 years later,
Mhm.
and I'm still in contact with some of them, and they've kind of seen my like journey into graduate school and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So it's really lovely to have those kinds of relationships if you're able to like cultivate them. It doesn't need to be uh, an intensely like um, social engineering type
yeah,
of networking thing, but just stay friendly,
yeah,
with your professors. Social media makes this really easy, as well as like friends that you maybe aren't like super close to, but like uh, stay in touch with people. Get coffee now and then. Have a phone chat now and then.
if you live by campus, swing by.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really nice to like stay connected, even after your college experience, and to like cultivate those connections that you make in college.
And now that you and I are both professors in teaching, one of the great joys in life is to find out your student is doing well. You know, someone gets into a law school. I love hearing that. Someone, decided to take up a graduate degree. I love hearing that. So do drop your teachers a line after you graduate.
Yeah, it's honestly like that's one of the best parts of the jobs is like seeing that my students are doing well. It makes me feel like I've done my job, because in teaching writing, you are helping students with so much more than just how a sentence is structured. You're helping them, write cover letters, write applications, things like that.
Yeah.
Um,
I do
so
think it's important that we sometimes take a step back at the writing center or in our classrooms and just check on how everyone's doing otherwise, which is kind of the impetus for these sort of, things we wish we knew during our undergrad, or things we'd taken advantage of during our undergrad.
yeah,
So
well, Cahill, I can't wait to hear your 5 things that you wish you knew in
that'll
undergrad.
be another 2 weeks. That's plenty. All right. I think that wraps us up for today. So thanks you all for listening. Thanks, Ellis, for sharing.
Thank you, Cahill. I'll see you later.
Take care.